Hey guys, welcome to The Spotlight, our new show, our new chapter on the hashtag MagnaOnAir network, magnasearchgroup.tv. Sitting on our show today is a special guest, a visionary, entrepreneur, philanthropist, expert at building successful businesses, exiting successful businesses.
We're putting the serial entrepreneur under the spotlight who has amassed millions of dollars through diversifying his portfolio across 37 verticals. He's in banking, he's in private aviation, he's in technology, he's in insurance, he's in domain names. I don't think there's anything this guy isn't into. And here to share his wisdom on success, it is our honor and our privilege to welcome
Louis David Spagnuolo
to the show. Welcome, Louis.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, first of all, Louis, again, for being on the show. So what is your story, Louis? You know, you talk about success. You push a lot of content out on social media. You know, we've read a lot of articles about you. Who is Louis David Spagnuolo?
Really, you know, I'm all about kind of giving, and that's why I do a lot of the social media, because I feel the more people you could help and the more people you could impact, not only do you make a positive impact on society, I feel a lot of it also comes back to you and gives you greater abundance. And that's one of the things I focus on just from a mental standpoint is I focus on abundance and, you know, how I could generate that and manifest that and help others. And in the meantime, you know, we build companies and we employ people and I create jobs. And it just seems to be a win-win for everybody. So that's kind of, you know, the overview or the focus of kind of what I'm about.
Interesting. And then what's the real story? What's the story of where did you start? When did the success really come to fruition? You know,
the story's crazy because I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, extremely humble backgrounds. A lot of times people ask me what my first job was, and I explained to them my first job was stealing food out of the back of restaurants. I then graduated to digging graves in cemeteries. That was my second job, and then my third job was working at a convenient food store, a 7-Eleven. So I started at the absolute bottom of the ladder, so to speak, that you could imagine. And I just did it really through perseverance and just climbing that mountain one step at a time. You know, a lot of times not even seeing the step in front of you and just believing in yourself that you got to keep moving forward always and you got to keep taking those steps. And there was a lot of times where I'd take 5 steps backwards and then have to go 6 steps forward or something like that. And there were so many setbacks that I had to overcome that I realized really the key is perseverance. And things actually kind of started turning my way. I went to University of Miami. I ended up getting into some businesses while I was in school. I did pretty well. I went on into real estate. And then fast forwarded, I took a position with the Royal Bank of Canada. And this was back in 1999, 2000-ish, right around the tech boom.
Yeah.
And we sat down in a boardroom. We had this company come out from California basically to pitch us on their services. And they were explaining to us that, you know, with their help, we could lend money not just in Florida, but all over the country. And they were going to help make us millions. And we thought these guys were crazy. But I thought it was kind of interesting because I was very in tune with this whole internet thing. I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was going to be a game changer like television and radio were because it was a communication device. And basically what they did was they sold us 1,000 internet leads, which at the time no one even knew what an internet lead was. And we decided to buy these internet leads. We paid $2 per lead, which was, you know, a very small sum. It was $2,000 investment. So we get the leads and we start giving them to the guys, and it was a complete disaster. I mean, it was just everybody was complaining. Everybody was upset with me. We wasted all this time. We wasted the bank's money, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So at the end of the month, we had our reconciliation meeting. And, you know, I told everyone, okay, I know it didn't go so well, you know, but what was the final, tally, what was the reconciliation? And they said, well, 960 of the leads were bad. The phone numbers didn't work. The people didn't answer. The emails were bad. And I said, okay, 960. And I said, well, what about the other 40? And it said the other 40, we actually have loans in process from people that we spoke to and engaged with and communicated to. And I said, all right, out of those 40 loans, how many of those do you think will close? And they said, well, we think probably 20 will close. And I said, okay, just out of curiosity, how much does the bank make per loan? And they said, we make about $3,000. So I was like, all right, I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm like, if you take $3,000 and you multiply it by 20, I think that's $60,000. And I was like, and then everybody kind of got quiet in the conference room. And they were like, wow, $60,000. We invested $2,000 and we made a $58,000 profit. And really that moment, if I had to choose any moment on things, was really when everything changed for me, because that's when I learned the internet. And when I learned the internet, I realized that you could take those same concepts, those same processes, and apply them to different verticals. And that's what we went on to do for the past, 15 or 16 years.
Wow. So then now you've got your primary company's Illuminati Trust. Is that correct?
That's actually my holding company. It actually doesn't really conduct any business. Basically, about a few years ago, my financial team told me that I needed a holding team to put all these entities under. So we just created a holding company, and that basically houses all the verticals that we participate in.
Okay. And as an entrepreneur, why is it so important to have that holding company for anyone that's either starting out or doesn't really understand that business?
Just from two things. One, from a liability standpoint, obviously in the United States, people are very litigious, and suing you for things. I mean, just recently, I can tell you a funny story. Just recently, I've always taken pride in having these really nice business cards, and I made these steel business cards. Basically, my company, the logo, all the websites, everything. And I went to a convention, and this lady comes up to me, and she just asked me for my card. I didn't know who she was. I handed it to her, thinking nothing of it. And then 3 weeks go by, and I get a letter in the mail saying that she cut her finger and hurt her tendons on the business card because it was metal. And she wanted me to give her $50,000.
Wow. It's like that McDonald's coffee story.
So I learned my lessons. So I've been pretty focused on making sure I took the right protective measures, number one. And then also from a tax standpoint, to have a holding company is important when you have a lot of different entities, because there's a lot of tax benefits to that.
Right. Yeah. Well, your money's exposed as well, right? If it's just sitting in there collecting dust in your business account, you want to push it up into your holding company and get that exposure away and the liability away.
Exactly. Because you never know what could happen. I mean, there's a lot of times where people are completely innocent and something happens on accident. Yeah. And you're a target, and people want to try to take advantage of you, and that's just the society that we live in.
Plus, for investment purposes too, as well. I'm sure Lewis, that do you manage a lot of your investments through that holding company? So your holding company
we do. We do manage a lot of them. Surprisingly, people will probably be surprised, I'm pretty much risk averse. So we do a lot of bond investing and fixed income investing and things like that. We don't really take high risk when it comes to the profits that we make, because I want to retain those profits, because I know how difficult it is to make money. And I also realize when you lose money, you have to make so much more just to get back to even. So we try to be conservative with it, but we do reinvest those profits on a monthly basis.
Okay. Interesting.
When you got into the internet game, were you heavy in the domain name part of it as well?
How it happened was when the company from California came out to meet us, consequently, their name was Lending Tree, which I'm sure people are familiar with.
Yeah.
We know those guys.
And we were their second customers. And we started doing so much business with them. We were spending about $180,000 a month, which at that time was an astronomical amount of money, because this was, again, 15, 16 years ago. $180,000 a month was a huge amount. So when I saw that, I said to myself, I'm like, this is incredible. We're paying this company so much money. We're making money, which is great, but there has to be a better strategy to doing this. Yeah. So basically what I did was I realized I would never be able to compete with Lending Tree. They were just too big. But I said, well, what if I built, a bunch of websites? And what if I got domain names that, were applicable to mortgages and lending? So I'd get floridamortgage.com, mortgagerefinancing.com. I got a whole slew of generic mortgage terms that I know people would search for. And we ended up building about 300 websites. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people is I said, listen, none of the websites were as successful as Lending Tree. And a lot of times I might only get, say, 3 leads a day on each website, which isn't a lot by any stretch of the imagination. But when you have 300 times anything, it becomes a big number. So we were generating 900 leads a day. which was
Wow.
an astronomical amount. And what happened was our conversion ratio went through the roof because we weren't competing with other people anymore because we had exclusive leads. And then our cost went cut like in half because we were generating all the leads organically and we weren't paying a company. So that strategy really got me into domain names and made me realize how important it is to have prime real estate online if you want to have a competitive advantage in any vertical that you go into.
Wow. Absolutely. Real estate is key. Did you manage to sell off those domain names to other third parties, Lewis, or do you still hold those domain names currently?
Originally, I had about 4,000 names, and I've maybe sold, I want to say, 100 around there. I would say probably 80 of them were probably just straight domain sales, and then probably 20 of them were actually developed websites. For example, going back about 4 years ago, we got into the identity protection business, and I bought identityprotection.com and I bought idprotection.com. And all we were really doing was we were a reseller for Equifax. We were reselling their product, and we were getting a certain cut of everybody that we signed up. But we were controlling the organic space online. So anytime anyone searched for identity protection, we would come up number one in all the search engines, and then idprotection.com would come up number two. So after a few years, Equifax calls us up, and they're like, listen, we're just kind of tired of you guys. You're kind of like a thorn in the side. You're always
Love when
number
that
one in the
happens.
rankings. Yeah, it's like our product that you're selling, we'd rather just get rid of you. And they ended up writing me a pretty substantial check to get rid of us. And if you go to the website today, it's my website, my exact website that I built. And all they did was put their logo in the top right-hand corner. So it was kind of ironic.
Wow. So then I'm just trying to understand if you got into name one of your domain names that's pretty popular 10 years ago, what would the value increase be now for a similar name, like privatejet.com or something like that? What would be the transition for like the 10-year period now that the internet's obviously up to date?
Well, with privatejet.com, that was an interesting story. I paid a lot of money for that domain going back about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I think I paid close to $1 million. It was the most expensive domain name I'd ever bought. And what happened was about, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, I ended up selling the domain, this is public knowledge, for $30.18 million, which was a pretty big number.
Sorry, how much, Lewis? How much was that?
One more time with the viewers.
$30.18 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what people don't realize, where the story gets really interesting, was they put down 50%, so it was $15 million, and then there was payments of $5 million, and at the end of the 5 years, there was a balloon payment. And what basically happened was everything was going great the first 2 years. They were paying me, everything was fine, and then by the 2.5-year point, they ran into some serious problems financially. And I said, listen, I want to be fair with you guys. You paid me a lot of money. I'll give you a 6-month grace period to find another investor to help you with this so, you don't lose out on the deal. And they tried to get another investor, and, the net result of the story was they ended up defaulting on the agreement. I ended up taking the name back, and then what happened was kind of interesting. Actually 3 weeks later, there was a Gulfstream that crashed in Paris, France, which is unheard of. Gulfstreams never crash. And luckily, there was only 2 pilots and a stewardess. There was no passengers. But I was just curious. I was like, I wonder where this plane originated from. And I did some research, and I found out the plane originated from Boca Raton, Florida, which is where I had my office. And I was like, wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
So I called up the company, and I said, listen, you guys have a really big problem. You just had a plane crash. No one's going to fly with you. You guys could rebrand yourself overnight and become privatejet.com, and this will solve all your problems. So we actually ended up doing a deal, not with them, but with a subsidiary of them. And that's where Private Jet has evolved into now.
So let's talk, Lewis, about Tiger 21, the peer-to-peer learning group that you're involved with. What is that all about?
Right. Basically, Tiger 21 is a group of ultra high net worth individuals who get together to cumulatively share their experiences, their insight, information, business acumen, business expertise. And basically, the best way to describe it is like having your own personal board of directors of successful guys who have been through different challenges, who have been through different liquidity events, who've taken companies public, things like that, where you could really talk about issues that you typically don't talk to with your friends or your colleagues, and things like that, where you could have a safe forum to say, hey, listen, I just came into X amount of money, where should I invest it? What's a safe haven? What should we do with the stock market? Where do you see it going? So we talk about a whole range of issues, everything from, financial to personal issues with people getting divorced, people getting married. So it really ranges the whole skew of life challenges, so to speak. And it gives us a forum where we could talk to other successful guys who've actually been through it and know it and try to help each other out.
Yeah, the power network.
It really is, especially when it comes to investments. Like a lot of us were able to get into a lot of the new technology companies like Uber, Airbnb, Snapchat very early on because of that. And we've made a significant amount of money because of that access to getting into those companies where most people would have that closed to them.
Yeah. And how do you manage it all, Louis? How do you manage all of this success?
I'll tell you the secret. The secret that I found is you have to pick the right partners. I think that's absolutely critical. And in every vertical, what I do is I look for someone who's has incredible expertise in that one area, whether it's private jets or insurance or selling flowers or blown glass or hunting equipment. It could be anything, but they have to have incredible expertise in that. And then I come to them and I say, listen, I know how to generate sales. I know how to get you new customers. I know how to aggregate leads. I could show you how to scale your business, but you know your business much better than I'm ever going to know it. So let's leverage your expertise and your experience, and then let's combine that with my technical knowledge and my knowledge of online world and the internet world and merge those two together, and then we'll run it, and basically I'll kind of be like your sounding board or your consultant where we'll talk once a week, or when we're first starting, usually it's every day, maybe multiple times a day. But then once it gets going, some of the companies I talk to like once a month just for an update.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to throw a curveball question at you. Speaking of partners that you very selectively choose, you and your partner on a deserted island. You've got 2 broken legs. You have to rely on this partner to get you home safely. What is the one specific key criteria that you need in their personality to save your life?
That's simple. Perseverance.
Love it.
Love it.
Perseverance is the key. You know what I mean? I don't care if I'm on a desert island. I don't care if my arms are broken, my legs are broken. I don't care what the situation is or how much adversity there is. If you have perseverance and you have the mind frame that you're never going to give up no matter what, you can't beat that man. That man will always win. And that's why I joke around with people and I say, listen, I hold the world record for the most mistakes ever made, but I'm undefeated.
Love it.
That's really what it comes down to. I'm undefeated. No one's ever beaten me.
Good.
I've made more mistakes than anybody. You name it, I've made the mistake, but no one's ever beaten me, and I've been undefeated, and I plan on continuing to be undefeated.
Perseverance, being relentless, pushing, shoving, kicking. You have to.
There's just no other way. I think today's business world is too difficult that if you're not extremely perseverant and completely laser focused, it's going to be very hard to achieve extreme success. I think it's easy in today's business world to just kind of scuttle by and kind of just, make like a simple life for yourself. I think the world's set up perfectly for that. So if someone just wants to have a basic life, it's very easy. Like the business world's set up perfect. But if you want to achieve great things and you want to have abundance and you want to make a difference in the world, if you don't have laser focus and extreme perseverance, it's going to be very difficult.
And Louis, how do you run at like 150% every single day? How do you keep so perseverant? What keeps you motivated?
It's funny because I think it's a combination of physical, where I do a lot of cardio and resistance training, because I think physically you have to be strong. I think mental. I think I do a lot of mental training with conditioning my mind, listening to music, listening to tapes, meditating. And then, spiritually, you have to have all 3 of those, I think, in balance to really work at the highest level. And then, as far as motivation goes, I just look around and I see the people that I interact with and I work with and I see their success and, I see some of the things that they've achieved. And I said, hey, if this person could do it, that means I could do it as well. And, that's constantly motivating me when I see people's successes, whether it's in business or it could be in athletics, it could be in professional sports. I mean, it could be really in any genre of human behavior, so to speak. And I see people achieving great things, and that really motivates me.
Surrounding yourself with great people doing big things.
Now, going through those mistakes in the period of your career, who was your mentor, and what was sort of the best advice that anyone gave to you, and who inspires you?
Yeah, who inspires you?
Ironically, and it's sad to say, I've never had a mentor. And it's funny because I've always wanted one, and I've just never, for whatever reason, been able to make that connection. And I kind of came to grips with the fact that it's probably never going to happen. So what I try to do is I try to mentor people as much as I can and give back, since no one was able to give to me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I made so many mistakes. If I had a dad that was successful in business, or an uncle that was successful in business, or a family friend or something like that, I think I would have made a lot less mistakes because they would have helped me along the way. But I also feel that I wouldn't have learned as much. And because of all those mistakes, I've learned so much that when I go into business situations, I feel I have such a competitive advantage against anybody I'm going up against, because I've made so many more mistakes than they've made, and I've learned from them. I know how to navigate a lot better.
And your background as well, Lewis, we're doing we're going to sell with mortgage leads and all of that. So you've got a bit of a background in selling. Do you feel having that sales background is a huge advantage to that competitive advantage you talk about?
Critical. I mean, it's critical. Life is about selling, whether it's in business or your personal life, your relationships, every minute of your life, you have to sell yourself. If you're trying to, date someone or get married, you have to sell yourself as a person. If you're in business and you have a product or service, you have to sell that product or service. Life is really all about selling, knowing how to sell yourself, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, knowing what to focus on, understanding your products and services, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and selling them. So I think selling is a critical skill that especially young people should learn early on. And it's really an overlooked skill, but it's so critical because the key to, I think, any business success is sales. If you don't have sales, it doesn't matter how great your HR department is or your marketing department.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
These things don't matter. And I laugh when people ask me a lot of these questions. I'm like, listen, I don't care anything about the company. I just want to know their sales. Are they great at doing sales? Because if they're great at sales, everything else I could fix. But if they have no sales and there's no demand for their product, it doesn't matter. They could have beautiful offices and everything could be beautiful and hunky-dory and what have you, but it's all surrounded around sales. You have to be able to generate new sales consistently to grow any business. And
you have a sales department in each one of your companies right now that are either picking up the phone or pushing content out online to drive more leads into your business.
I tell people in all the businesses, we only have one department, and that's sales. So if you're not in that department, you're not working for me.
From the receptionist all the way up.
Everybody's selling.
Everybody.
Listen, if you're not in sales, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? So you may be answering the phone, but you need to sell those people that are calling that they made the right decision to call us because we're going to give them the best products. So you need to sell them before you hand them off to the next person. So every aspect of it is selling. So I don't think I would ever hire anyone if their focus wasn't on sales. If their focus was on management or this or that, I think people are grown up enough and they're enough of adults and mature enough and work hard enough that you really don't have to micromanage people nowadays.
Yeah.
And I feel there's so much, excess management in companies that waste so much time that you should just give people what their responsibilities are, what the objective is, and let them go do it. And leave them alone. And then if they have questions, that's great. They could come to you, you can answer the questions, you can help guide them. But the whole process of management and middle management, I think that's something that started in the 1950s or the 1960s, and I think it should have stayed there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
And then, so I want to go a little bit more into the funner questions and really put you under the spotlight and start
under the spotlight.
Start throwing some things your way. The first one I want to say is, okay, if you only had $50,000 in your bank right now, what would you do with it?
As far as what?
What would you do with it? What would you invest it? And if so, where would you invest it? How would you take 50,000 today and try to get it to 5 million in the next couple of years?
Going back to your 20s, Lewis, you've got $50,000 in the bank account. And would you put it into training? Would you put it into investing? Knowing what you know now, if you were 23, 24 years old, what would you do with $50,000 in your bank account?
I would invest the whole $50,000 in myself, is what I would do. I would take every penny of that money and train myself to be the most proficient salesperson I could possibly be. I would gain the most business acumen I could possibly gain. I would learn different verticals and sectors that I had a passion for. I'd work for free. I would intern. I would basically try to be a sponge and gain as much knowledge as possible and use that $50,000 to better myself, whether it be taking seminars, reading courses, buying books, getting private tutoring, private mentoring, whatever it may be. I would take every penny of that money to make myself as skilled and proficient as possible, because I know once that period is done and once that 50,000 was drained, I know I could go into any industry and do well and be successful.
How many books do you read in a month, Lewis?
I mean, I have, it's funny because I have a library in my house. And last time we counted, I had like 460 like business books. Like just the only thing I read about is business. Like it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated with business. Fascinated with negotiating, with sales. I like reading about people that have been successful in business, how they've done it. Because a lot of times I've taken people that have been successful in one industry and then taken those methodologies and applied them to another industry that has never seen that before, and we've had a lot of success. So I've read a lot of books, and I would say typically I try to read probably 2 books a week. I mean, every night I probably read about an hour and a half before I go to bed, and usually that gets me through about 2 books a week. So I would say it's a high amount, and I would say the books now are mainly business books, or they're mental conditioning books, metaphysical books, ways to train your mind, things like that is what I'm focused on, because I feel those are the things that are going to make me better as a person and as a businessman.
And what are your top 3 business books to read?
Top 3 of all time?
Top 3 of all time.
Let's hear it.
Best-selling authors. Who are they?
I'll go pick them up.
I'll tell you, the one book that really changed my life, and this is going back to the year 2000, I was in California, I was in Santa Monica, and I was out there to attend a friend's wedding. We were staying at the Fairmont Hotel. I had the best suite in the hotel. I was with my girlfriend. Everything was going great, and I was unhappy. I was like, I just can't believe, this is it. You make money, you have money, you stay at the best hotels, we go to the best restaurants, we drink the best wine, and it's just unfulfilling. And I was like, came to a realization that I'm like, wow, this is like a huge disappointment. I grew up really poor. I finally made it, and I'm like, this is it. Like, there has to be more to it. And what happened was I came across this book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. It's a blue paperback book. I think it was written like in 1953. And it happened to be in the hotel's library, of all places. And for whatever reason, something made me gravitate towards this book, and I grabbed it off the shelf. And sadly to say, I actually stole the book from the hotel. So I owe the hotel probably like $9.95 or whatever the bill cost. So the next time I'm out there, I have to remember to pay them back for that book that I took.
But back to your stealing food days.
Yeah, exactly. I just got so enthralled with the book, I couldn't put it down. And the trip ended, and I was halfway through the book. And Joseph Murphy was incredible, basically teaching about the subconscious mind, how you condition your mind, how do you condition your mind for success. And that really got me started with metaphysics and learning all about that. And then after him, I went to this author. It was actually a female author by the name of Catherine Ponder. And she wrote some really fantastic books on the dynamic laws of prosperity. And I started learning how to mentally condition myself for prosperity and for abundance. And she taught me a lot with that. And then I would say thirdly, I'd probably say, one of the classics is Napoleon Hill. All his books, Think and Grow Rich, and, all the ones that he wrote, I think have been great. And then I'd also probably add a fourth. I read the Vince Lombardi book. I'm a big fan of Vince Lombardi, just because I feel that he's the personification of perseverance. and never give up and never quit attitude. So his book just reinstilled all the things I believed in, that you got to work hard, and men want to work hard and they want to be pushed. And there's a great gratification from doing that and being disciplined and being hard on them. So I really enjoyed, his motivational and, kind of insight on how he felt he should lead as a leader of a team, whether it was a sports team or a business team. What skills and what things you need to do to motivate men. I learned a lot about that. So when I have my employees, I know that everybody's different. So I know there's different touch points to motivate different people.
So I would say that, most entrepreneurs will say that the best way to learn is by doing. I'm sure you'll agree. Would you say that second best would be those books like this of training your mind in different avenues of learning so that you can apply it all to your business?
Because there's a lot of people, sorry, Lewis, there's a lot of people that talk, but they just don't do.
Right,
and that's what we're finding, and that's what a lot of our clients are finding, is that there's thinkers, there's talkers, there just isn't enough doers out there.
I agree. I totally agree. I think the formula that I say is, first you have to have belief. You have to believe in what you're doing, and then the second one is action. So you put action and belief together, and you become pretty unstoppable. And I tell people, you have to move forward every day. And what I do is I have a little simple technique where I call it the top 5. And basically I do it with myself and all my employees. Every morning we get to the office, we get to work, we take out our yellow notepad, and we write down the 5 most important things in order that need to get done that day. Just 5 things. And I tell all my employees, I go, listen, you don't need to do 10 things today. You don't need to accomplish 20 things today. You just write down the 5 most important. And if you get all 5 of those done, you could go home for the rest of the day. I don't even care. Because if you accomplish 5 things every day that are important, that are going to move the organization forward, they're going to move you forward personally, they're going to move the company forward, you're achieving a lot. And I think that motivates people to do it and to act and to take action. Because what happens is, if you have 50 things you have to do during the course of the day, you end up doing none of them. You end up getting caught up on phone calls, distracted. Yeah, you spin the tires and
Wasting
you get nothing
time.
accomplished. You waste time, exactly. So I'm like, let's simplify this and let's put it at a manageable number, because 5 is manageable. If you put it at 10, it's very difficult to accomplish 10 things during the day. It's just very hard, and then a lot of people would fail. So through trial and error, we found that the sweet spot was 5. So we call it the top 5, and every day I wake up, I say, these are the most important 5 things I have to accomplish. So I know every single day I'm accomplishing things and I'm taking action, because it forces me to take action.
And sales is obviously on one of those top 5 things. Focus on sales and focus on revenue.
Yeah, it's all about sales. How do I grow sales? What strategic partnerships do I need to reach out to? What distribution channels do we need to add? What opportunities do I need to explore where I feel there's inefficiency that we could take advantage of? It's all things like that. Always, what do we need to do to move forward and progress and get better and to get into new verticals or to improve the verticals we're in. And I felt that by doing those 5 things every day, and I've kept journals of this for probably the past 10 years, I can look back, it's amazing how much you'll accomplish in a month's time if you could just be consistent and do 5 things every day that are very important and then not worry about anything else.
So the goal is to be productive, not to be busy, right?
Exactly, because I talk to a lot of people and they tell me how busy they are, and I'm like, well, what did you accomplish today? And they're like, well, I couldn't really accomplish anything because I was too busy. And I'm like, how does that make sense?
I'm sick of hearing it.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you playing, fantasy football or fantasy basketball? Like, what are you doing during the day that you're so busy but you're not accomplishing anything? So that's why I tell people, if you can't show me 5 things that you accomplished during the day, you shouldn't be here.
Absolutely,
that's a great methodology.
Perseverance, obscurity.
And then the other thing that I'd like to throw your way is, I know that you got a lot of nice cars. If you could describe yourself with one of your cars, what would that be?
It always comes back to the car.
Well, first of all, how many cars do you have, Lewis? How big is your garage?
And what is your favorite car?
It's funny because I must have answered that question a lot of times, and my fiance is so anti-car that she says, if you ever do an interview again and you say how many cars you have, she's like, we're not getting married. So I can't talk about how many cars I have.
All right, keep it discreet.
I'll just leave it that it's a large number.
Okay.
It's probably bigger than what it should be. But again, that's like, kind of a funny story too, because growing up, we didn't even have a car. And, for a long period of time, for probably, I think 11 years, I used to drive a used Lincoln Town Car. and I had about 197,000 miles on it. I would drive it every day, and everybody at work would make fun of me, because everybody at work was making a lot of money, and they'd have 3-4 cars, Mercedes, Bentleys, you name it. And I had this really piece of junk black Lincoln Town Car, and I was happy driving it. I'm a big guy. It was quiet. It was easy to drive. And then one day I was driving to work, and the engine seized, and basically the car died. So I had someone pick me up on the highway, and I got back to the office, and the first thing I did was I called the Lincoln Mercury dealer, and I said, listen, I'm in the market for a town car. And my assistant comes in, I'll never forget it. She's like, Lou, I'm not going to let you buy another town car. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're 30, 3 years old. And she's like, you need a girlfriend. You can't be in South Florida picking up some girl as a 33-year-old guy in like an 80-year-old man's car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but I like the town car. It's nice. And she's like, no, you're not buying it. That's it. You can't be single and driving a town car. So they kind of twisted my arm a little, and I got my first taste, I guess, of maybe a semi-exotic car, I would call it. I bought an AMG Mercedes. Oof. And I liked it. It was a nice car. Mercedes builds a beautiful car. And then what happened was I was at the Palm Beach Boat Show, and I was with a friend of mine who was a yacht broker, and we were walking back from the boat show, and all of a sudden we're on the sidewalk, and he just falls down. And I was like, wow, what's this about? I'm like, you okay? What's going on? Are you tired? You dehydrated? And he's like, yeah, let me just sit down for a minute. So I'm thinking he was just a little tired from being in the sun all day. We walk a little bit further, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, again, he falls down. So I'm like, listen, let's just go to the hospital. I take him to the hospital, and he's there for about a week, and they don't think anything's wrong with him, and they're telling him he's fine. And, they did all these tests and everything. And then he comes back, and he's like, yeah, it must have been just like a heat spell or whatever. A week later, he's at work, and same thing happens. They rush him to the hospital. This time they take him to the Cleveland Clinic, and he gets diagnosed with lung cancer. Oh. And he never smoked cigarettes. He was never around people with cigarettes, kind of like a fluke thing. He ends up getting lung cancer, and within 12 weeks, he passes away. Wow. And while he was in the hospital, I was there, and I was holding his hand, and he said, listen, he's like, make sure you take advantage of every day. Don't let these days pass, because you don't know how long you're going to be here for. And he was 34 years old at the time. Wow. And that really struck me. That really changed my outlook on things, because I've been really frugal my whole life up until that point, driving old beat up cars, not really spending any money, saving everything, investing everything. And then when he died, I said, you know what? I could die next week, and all my dreams, the things I wanted to do are never going to get fulfilled. And that's basically when I said, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a Ferrari. And that's kind of how it started. I said, I'm going to make sure that this dream gets accomplished before anything happens. And I'm like, I'm going to do it now. So I ended up getting my first Ferrari in 2010. I got a 458 Italia. And, I'll never forget it. They delivered it to me by truck. They rolled it out. And I couldn't believe I really did it. And I accomplished it, and I got it. And I'll never forget that night, the car's in my garage, and I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden I wake up at 2:30 in the morning, and I'm like, man, did this really happen, or is this a dream? And I couldn't figure it out. I was going back and forth, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this was real. So I ended up walking out to my garage in my parking lot, and I just touched the rear fender of the car with my hand to make sure it was really there and it was real. And I was like, wow, this really happened. So it was a pretty, touching moment for me. And it changed my perspective on things. And then once I got the car and I saw people's reactions to it, and I saw how happy it made them, just driving a silly car, I kind of got addicted to it, and then just started getting, all the Ferraris, and then I got into Rolls Royce, and then it just kind of took on a life of its own.
So Rolls Royce or Ferrari?
Well, who's you? Which one's you?
It's funny because I'm very close with the CEO of Rolls Royce, and I'm very close with the owners of Ferrari. The way I answer this is basically during the day, I would say I'm Rolls Royce, and then at night I'm Ferrari.
Wow. There you go. Wow. So, okay, going back to seizing the day, if you only had 24 hours to live, what would you do? Right. What would you do?
Truthfully, I'll tell you what I would do. I would thank every single person that's helped me, even in the smallest degree, and just explain to them how grateful I was for their help. Because there hasn't been a lot of people in my life that have helped me, and I'd want them to know before I died how grateful I was for all that support that they gave me. And that's where I'd want to spend my 24 hours.
Wow. Continue helping. I've always been under the impression if I can continue helping people in their life, in their business, my company's only going to thrive. So I focus on one thing, continue helping, continue pushing. I've surrounded myself.
Being grateful, I think is really important. I wake up every day super grateful, and I think that helps you have a positive attitude. If you're grateful for the little things, people laugh at me, like I'll wake up and I'll be like, man, look how grateful we are. We get to have like any breakfast we want, lunches, we go to the best restaurants, dinners, we can eat lobster, steak every night. And people looking at me, they're like, Lou, that's just like food. I'm like, you know what? I'm grateful that I could have that, because there was a time in my life where I didn't have food, and I wasn't able to go to a restaurant or order what I wanted or things like that. So the simple things, sleeping in a bed, having, beautiful pillows, having cars to drive, I'm grateful for so many of the basic things in life. I think that helps propel me to have the right attitude to achieve more.
But without success in your business, you couldn't have those things.
Correct. I mean, business is important. I mean, I'm going to make no bones about it. A lot of people say, money's not important, business is not important. That's not true. I'm not obsessed with money. I'm obsessed with success and being able to, have no restraints, have no strings on myself, do whatever I want, and help as many people as I want. That's why I work hard, and I continue to work hard, because the harder I work, the more I could do for others.
And you want to live a free life, not a rich life, a free life.
100%. I just want to have the freedoms. I mean, I work like an animal. I work 8 days a week, 25 hours a day. But I know, there's always a time where I say, hey, you know what? This is really special. We got to do this. We got to meet this person, or we got to travel here or go there or do whatever that I know most people don't get the experience. And I say it's all worth it. All the hard work pays off.
Yeah, I'm building 2 companies right now, Louis, and I have a fiance. I'm about to get married on July 15th. So it's coming up extremely fast. Thank you. You mentioned that you have a girlfriend, or is it your wife?
Fiance. Yeah, fiance too.
Same boat.
We'll hopefully get married in November.
Awesome. How do you keep your wife happy? Like, I hear it all the time from my fiance. She goes, you're too busy for me. You don't pay attention to me. You can't multitask. When are you going to spend time with me?
Happy wife, happy life, right? So how do you do it?
How do you manage it all?
I actually hit the jackpot, I think, with my fiance that I have now, because she's actually a businesswoman that kind of has her own empire, so to speak. So we're able to relate a lot when it comes to business, and we're able to talk about different business challenges and different business issues. And luckily for me, she's very, very good at having a work-life balance and very good at taking trips and just doing spontaneous things. I mean, it could be like Friday night and we could be having dinner at some restaurant and she'd be like, you know what, let's go to the Bahamas tonight and spend the next 3 days there. Wow. Whereas me, I would never do that. I'd want to like plan and organize and check my calendar and make sure. Whereas her, she just doesn't care. She would just like instantaneously do things. So she's taught me so much about how valuable life is and how short life is and how you got to make the most of every moment, because every moment that you give away, you can never get back. And every night you go to sleep, you can never get that day back.
Yeah.
So she's taught me a lot about having that work balance, knowing when to shut the cell phone off, knowing when to take time for us and do things for us. Because for me, if I didn't have any constraints, I would just work 24 hours a day, every single day, nonstop, because that's what I do. I don't really know anything else. I don't really have any hobbies. I don't play golf. So I have an obsessive, extreme personality that lends itself to doing that, where she's taught me to say, hey, you know what? We have to have more balance. It's not always about, doing what you want. It's about doing what's best.
And before you got engaged, or did you set any expectations with your fiance? You're like saying, listen, this is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah, she knew from the beginning. I did a lot of traveling. I'd go to a lot of sporting events with clients. We'd go to the Grammy Awards, the Oscar Awards. We'd go to the Masters. And she knew that was part of my whole business with creating unforgettable experiences for people. And that's kind of what we focus on. That's kind of our marketing angle. Like a lot of people say, why don't you advertise? Or why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in finding someone that's a potential client and then giving them an unforgettable experience that they'll never forget the rest of their life. And that's kind of what differentiates us. So she knew going in that I did a lot of that. And she's actually applied some of those techniques to her business, and her businesses and her holdings have really grown exponentially, because we've done some incredible things with her prospects and her clients and my prospects and clients. And, we just got back actually from the Bahamas, and we had this private dinner at the Grey Cliff Hotel and restaurant, which a lot of people know. It's very famous. But what was unique about it was we got to have dinner in the wine cellar, which is below the hotel. And only 188 people have ever had dinner there. So we had a group of about 16 people, and they were just blown away, because when you get there, there's a book you have to sign in, and it has everybody's names. And, we saw names of Tom Cruise, Jay-Z, Fidel Castro, Barack Obama. I mean, it was incredible. It was like a who's list. So when all of our, our prospects, our friends, or clients, they're signing that book, they're just like in awe. Like that whole experience, once it was over, they're like, Lou, I can't thank you enough. This experience was unbelievable. This was once in a lifetime. How can we do business together? What can we do? Let's talk on Monday and figure out how we could work together as a team and do more things like this and help each other's business grow. And a lot of people are like, oh, you have to ask for the business. You always have to ask for the business. I'm like, people are always inundated with getting asked for their business. Instead of asking for their business, why don't you first make a deposit in their business, a deposit into their life, or the deposit into what's important to them, and then ask for their business as a withdrawal. And I think that's a concept a lot of people have kind of lost through the years.
Showing them value first, getting them excited about your service or product, putting an investment into your client, whether it be taking them for meals, bringing them to private wine cellars, showing that appreciation, prove your worth, then take the withdrawal.
I can tell you so many examples. Usually what I try to do is I try to find out what someone has a passion in, and maybe it's basketball. So if the person loves basketball, I'll find out what their favorite team is, and I'll say, listen, by the way, I have floor seats for the Heat game. They're playing the Lakers. I know the Lakers are your favorite game. I'd love to give you the tickets if you'd want to go. And then I give them those tickets. They get to sit on the floor, which is an unbelievable experience. And then, the next day they call me back. They're like, I can't thank you enough. I went with my son. He was touching the players. He was talking to them. It was unbelievable. What can we do to work together? And that's usually how the relationships develop.
Absolutely. So how important is it, Louis, to take care of your customers like that at your level?
I think what's important is to do things that haven't been done before. I think if you just go to dinner, they've done that a million times. You go to lunch, they've done that a million times. And then a lot of times I talk to people and they say, oh, I'll play golf with them. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but they've done that a million times. So for me, what I try to do, like I said, is I want to create a unique experience. So what I did was I had these 3 guys that were really into golf. And I said, all right, let's go to the Miami Beach, country club, and we'll play some golf. And I don't even golf, so I just drove the cart. But what I did was I surprised them with having golfer Ian Poulter basically fly down from Orlando. And he came in, and I shook his hand, and I gave him a hug, and their eyes just lit up. They were in shock just seeing him. And I'm like, by the way, guys, do you mind if he joins us as a foursome? And their mouth just shocked. They were in shock, They thought it was spontaneous, but I planned the whole thing behind the scenes that he was going to play around with them. And it was, just unbelievable. The guys were taking pictures, and they were just blown away. And they were like, listen, I've played golf for 30 years and played every course around the world and what have you, but I've never had experience like this. And that's really what our goal is in business, is to achieve unique experiences, whether it's by a product, a service, or an experience.
Taking care of your customers, right? At the end of the day, that's your boss. That's who you need to feed. And it's always about taking care of your customers.
Exactly. It's all about your clients and your sales. And when you take care of your customers to that extreme level, they want to give you more customers. They want to help you. They want to be like a salesperson, a pseudo salesperson for you. And they actually work for us and saying, hey, you got to meet this guy. He'll be great for you for business. Let me introduce you to that guy. So when you could build a pseudo sales team of people that you don't have to pay, that's an incredible competitive advantage to have in any business.
And that can come quick. If you're good at what you do, you're efficient, you build relationships fast, that can come extremely fast.
100%. You just need one relationship to introduce you to the right person, and your business could explode. So that's why I think it's so important to give value to everybody that you interact with. Even if you just meet them at a lunch, I always say, okay, what can I do to help you? What can I do that'll help your business? Who can I introduce you to? And then I try to make deposits in them first. And then, sometimes, nothing comes out of it back for me, but then other times they'll say, hey, you know what? 5 years later, you got to meet this person, and then that person changes the whole dynamic.
Investing that time in your customers, investing that time in the relationships, all the philanthropic work that you do, how do you find the time to help people, and why do you love helping people so much?
I would say the main reason why I love helping people is because no one helped me. And that was hard, growing up, going through so many adversities and no one willing to help me. It really stung, it stung hard. And when it comes to philanthropy, going back years ago, I was big with donating and being a part of all these causes and whatnot. And then I kind of got burnt out of it, and I felt I was getting taken advantage of. So now what I do is I call it shock philanthropy, basically. And it's really simple. It's not a complex process where, I could be at the supermarket, and I don't go to the supermarket often, but when I do, and I'll be in line, and I'll see, a mother with maybe 3 or 4 kids, and they'll have 2 gigantic shopping bags worth of food and groceries and what have you. And I'll just tell the cashier that, listen, I'm going to take care of that. And it's basically random acts of kindness. I think it's so important.
I love that.
And I think it's lost. I think in today's society, everybody's about what could they get and how could they get further and what do they need to do. And they forgot how beautiful random acts of kindness could be. And, it happens to me all the time. I'll go to the gas station, I'll fill up my car, and, I'll see one of the kids selling, candy bars for their baseball team to, go on some field trip or whatever. And, I'll buy the whole box, and then I'll say, call your, your boss or your supervisor, whoever's in charge of the trip, and we'll get them on the phone, and I'll talk to them and be like, all right, how much is the whole trip going to cost? And they'll be like, all right, it's $3,500. And I'll be like, all right, I'm going to pay for the whole trip. Tell all the kids to come home, go back to the house. They don't need to be at gas station selling candy. I got this covered. Wow. And they'll just be in shock, And it's small things like that make a big impact on people.
And on
that's
yourself.
And then that's what my goal is. I want to give people an experience that, they can never forget. And I'll give you another example that just came to mind. Actually last week, I'm with my fiance. She's in my apartment, and she wanted to drive one of the new Porsches that I got that happens to be very expensive. And for whatever reason, she had the key in her hand, and she's going out to take the trash out in the trash chute and then go drive the car. And while she was dumping the trash in the trash chute, she drops the key in the chute. She comes back into the house and she tells me this, and I handled it very well, considering. But inside, I was ready to explode. I'm like, babe, do you know how much that car is? And you just lost the key to the car. And have you lost your? And the key is very difficult to get.
Yeah,
it takes a month to get the key. It's $5,000. It was a massive headache. So basically, I went downstairs to my building, and I talked to security, and I told the maintenance guys, listen, she lost the key, whatever. And there was this one guy that I'd never met in the building. And he said, listen, I'm going to try to find the key for you. So I was like, all right. And this was at 7:30 in the morning. And it got to about 12:30, about 5 hours later. I went down there, and he still hadn't found the key. And he has gloves on and boots, and he has this hazmat suit on. And he's literally in the dumpster and in the trash chute searching for this black little key. And, I'm telling my fiance, I'm like, listen, he's never going to find this. And then all of a sudden we're at lunch, and he calls me up and he's like, listen, come back to the building. I found your key. So I'm like, babe, you're not going to believe this. This guy's been searching for the key for 6 hours in a dumpster, going through trash and trash bags and what have you, and he found the key. And we both got so emotional because we're like, wow, someone that would take that much effort to do something just to help us for such a trivial, superficial, stupid car. I was like, we got to do something for this guy, And she's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, let's go to Walgreens and we'll get him a gift card. And she's like, listen, you know that key would have been $5,000 to replace. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, how much, you think we should do? What should we get him?
Yeah.
So we ended up getting him a $500 American Express gift card. And,
nice.
We had it, bought a pen, and we put on there $500. And we pulled into the building, and I was like, listen, give him the card, just tell him thank you, how much we appreciate it. And it was such an emotional scene that I had to get back in the car. My fiance handed the guy the card, and he literally started crying, standing up, wow. The next second, tears just started coming down his eyes. And he said, listen, he's like, you don't know how much this means to me. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, my wife has been asking me for this dress for like 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't had the money to buy it. And you know, the guy probably makes $12 an hour, you know, something like that. And he's like, I've been saving and saving and saving for months to get this one dress for her. And the dress was $200, you know, and he's been saving so long. And he's like, this made me so happy because now I could finally get that dress from my wife. And both of us, me and my fiance, were just like, man, you know, if we're not grateful, you know, for this, then there's something wrong with us. You know, to just make that small of a contribution to someone that makes that big of an impact in them. I just think it's important, and I think more people should do it. I think a lot of people have the means to do it, and they just don't practice, you know, random acts of kindness. And I think the world would be a better place if more people helped each other out.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is he didn't even think about it for himself. He thought about it for his wife.
And the crazy part was he didn't think I was going to give him any money. He wasn't doing it for the money.
Yeah,
he was doing it
time.
just to do his job and go the extra distance to help us. And then when he got it, he started crying, like literally right away. And to know that one guy wanted to do something for his wife that bad, you know, and that we were able to play a small role in helping that, you know, it's so gratifying. So that's the reason why it's so important to me to give back and to help other people, because really no one ever did that for me. And I feel that's kind of like my job to do the best I can to, you know, give to others.
Wow. And then
that's powerful, Louis.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's good. Wow,
that's amazing. And how can people find out more about you, Louis?
I mean, listen, LinkedIn, I'm all over LinkedIn. It's easy to message me on LinkedIn. I get a million messages. I have my own website, louisspagnuolo.com. I mean, I'm all over the internet. I'm not hard to find. I mean, I get emails from all over the world, people. So if anything, you know, it's funny, my fiance says I'm too easy to find and that I should be less accessible. But, you know, my take on it is, you know, I want to be accessible to a certain degree because you never know where opportunities are going to hide. And I also want to try to give back to people as much as I can. So there's kind of two components to that.
Absolutely.
Well,
Accessibility is key.
Too.
Accessibility is key, right? You want to be everywhere. You want to be often. You want to be frequent.
And you want people to consistently see you on a consistent basis and send out a positive message to them and, you know, inspire them to do great things.
Yeah. Be the celebrity in your space, right?
All right. Well,
you want to build your brand, basically, you know, so I take a lot of pride in that.
And I've got another question for you here, Louis.
One more
question. What are your pet peeves? Do you have any pet peeves? What do you really hate?
You know, the funny part is I don't hate anything in life. I don't hate anybody in life. But my biggest pet peeve is when people tell me they can't do it. You know, whatever it could be. It could be a sporting event. It could be a basic activity. It could be a business thing. And they tell me they can't do it. And it gets me so aggravated because I see our war veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and where have you. And, you know, I have photos and I've met people that have one leg or one arm and they're doing triathlons or they're lifting weights and doing powerlifting and they just won't quit. And they just have that perseverant attitude that no matter what my hardship is, if God takes an arm from me, a leg from me, a foot from me, whatever it is, I'm still going to do what I want to do and no one's going to stop me. So when I see people like that who have fought for our country, laid their life on the line and have lost limbs and won't give up and still want to achieve their goals, and then I look at other people that have the whole world in front of them, that have a beautiful family, that have money, that have, you know, both arms, both legs, a brain, you name it, and they tell me they can't do it. That really kind of
grinds your gears. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's too common these days. You hear it all the time. You know, can't do this, can't do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. It's not in my job description. You know.
I hate like when people tell me it's not in the job description, and I said, well, listen, there's the door. You know, you can leave. I'm not chaining you down. I mean, trust me, if you leave, it's not going to affect my life. You know, that's why I tell people your job description is to do anything and everything that's going to advance the company. Because the better the company does, the more money I could pay you, and the more rewards I could give you, and the more trips I could send you on, and the more cars I could buy you. You know, so it's important that we work as a team, you know, all together to win that Super Bowl, to win that championship. You know, and that's where really Vince Lombardi came in and explained to me that everybody has to work together. You know, no matter what rank they are in your company or in your business, you all have to work to a team towards that goal, and that's when great things happen.
Wow. Well, Louis, I got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for spending so much time with us, providing so much value. We're very excited to have you on the show, and we really appreciate your time.
And sharing your story with the world, Louis. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really, really appreciate you being here, and I hope our audience really took down notes A lot of powerful stuff discussed on the show. Hashtag MagnaOnAir, MagnaSearchGroup.tv, Lewis Spagnuolo, Under the Spotlight. We'll see you next week.